They told him he was too young, too radical, too dangerous. And yet, here he stands, not just as the president of Burkina Faso, but as the symbol of something far bigger. Africa's youth call him our Sankara reborn. The diaspora chant his name on the streets of Paris, Kingston, New York, and in military bases from Bamako to Ouagadougou, soldiers salute a man who broke the rules and reignited a revolution. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the world's youngest president, the most feared name in West African politics. And if you ask some in Washington or Paris, possibly the most dangerous man in Africa. But here's the twist. He's not dangerous to his people. He's dangerous to the system that's kept them poor. To understand what makes Traoré a phenomenon, you have to rewind. Back to 1988. He was born in the dusty village of Kéra, far from the centers of power, wealth, and privilege. No silver spoon, no political godfather, just grit. He excelled in school, studied geology, but opted for boots, not books. He joined the military, not to sit in an office, but to serve on the front lines. And then, Burkina Faso collapsed. Terror attacks surged. Entire towns were swallowed by insurgents. Corruption oozed from every corner of the state. Soldiers died for lack of bullets. Civilians were left unprotected. And the so-called leaders, busy signing foreign deals while the country bled. So Traoré took a risk that could have cost him his life. In September 2022, he stormed the palace, overthrew his superior, and took control. With just one mission, restore Burkina Faso to its people. No promises, no smiles, just action. First, he expelled French troops. Not a polite, please leave. Number A, firm, unapologetic exit. Then he ditched French as an official language and elevated Burkina Faso's native tongues. He called out Western diplomats live on TV. He exposed secret gold contracts signed behind the people's backs. And then he aligned with Mali and Niger, forming the Alliance of Sahel States. A new African-led bloc that told the West, we will not be your playground anymore. The reactions? Explosive. Some Africans cried tears of joy. Others whispered, he won't last a year. Western media tried to paint him as a dictator in the making. Analysts predicted collapse. They were wrong, because something unexpected happened. From Dakar to Dar es Salaam, African youth began asking a question that terrified old powers. What if Traoré's way is the right way? Here's a truth you weren't supposed to hear. Within months, security improved. Displaced people returned to their villages. Traoré cut his own salary. He banned luxury cars for government ministers. And he reopened talks with Russia, Turkey, and China. On his terms. No IMF strings, no colonial guilt trips. Suddenly, Burkina Faso, the country many couldn't even place on a map, became the hottest name in global geopolitics. But Traoré didn't stop there. He ordered the construction of schools using local materials and labor. He publicly endorsed Pan-African unity. He built a memorial for Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary assassinated in 1987, by the very system Traoré now fights. And then came the speeches. Oh, the speeches. He didn't mince words. At international summits, while other leaders spoke in rehearsed jargon, he spoke fire. We will not kneel. We are not your colonies. Africa will rise on its own terms, or not at all. He wasn't asking for help. He was declaring independence, again. This time not just from flags and anthems, but from debt traps, military occupations, and resource theft. Of course, this didn't sit well with the old powers. Within a year, a U.S. general accused Traoré of hoarding gold. Articles began surfacing, questioning his human rights record. Sanctions were whispered. But instead of fear, these attacks triggered something powerful. Loyalty. Not just in Burkina Faso, across Africa. In Jamaica, Rastafarians held marches in his name. In France, African students flooded the streets with Pan-African flags. In South Africa, artists began painting murals of him beside Mandela and Lumumba. Why? Because for the first time in decades, here was a leader who didn't sound like a puppet. He wasn't begging. He wasn't apologizing. He was roaring. And in a continent still haunted by coups engineered in London, Paris, and DC, That roar meant everything. But this story isn't just about politics. It's about identity. Traoré's government pushed for cultural revival. Traditional festivals were funded. Local languages broadcast on radio. School curriculums rewritten to include African history. Not colonial versions, but real ones. Because here's a life-saving truth most schools never teach. When you erase a people's history, you erase their future. Traoré understood this, and he weaponized it in the best possible way, by turning identity into a source of strength. But he's not perfect. His rule is military. His country is still at war. Press freedoms are fragile. Human rights groups raise serious concerns. And yet, the people still chant his name. Why? Because they remember what came before. Presidents who sold the land. Ministers who lived in Dubai while citizens drank from muddy wells. NGOs that promised schools but delivered photo ops. Traoré might be a soldier, but to many he's the first leader they've seen in decades. And here's a question for you. What would your country look like if its leaders actually served the people, not foreign banks? Traoré doesn't just raise that question, he embodies it, and he's not alone. His alliance with Mali and Niger has birthed a new bloc in West Africa, a kind of mini African Union, but one with teeth. They've shared military resources, pushed back against insurgencies, and are now exploring a shared currency. Call it bold, call it dangerous, but call it what it is, unprecedented. So what now? Can Traoré survive the global pressure? Because history warns us, this path is perilous. Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. Sankara was betrayed. Nkrumah was exiled. Will Traoré join that list or rewrite it? That depends on more than just him. It depends on you, because change doesn't come from one man. It comes from movements, from solidarity, from refusing to scroll past. And here's where you come in. Leave a comment below. Would you support a leader like Traoré in your country? Tag someone who needs to hear the story. Share this video if you believe Africa deserves more than charity. It deserves justice. And remember this final truth. You can kill a man, but you can't kill an idea. And right now across Africa, one idea is rising. We are not weak. We are not lost. We are the future. And our time is now. If you believe Africa deserves more than debt traps and foreign control, don't scroll past. Comment below. Would you support a leader like Traoré in your country? Share this with someone who still thinks Africa needs saving. Like and subscribe for more stories that challenge history and write new futures. Because if you're still watching, then you are part of the movement. And history is not just watching, it's waiting for you.